So every so often, a device comes around that tries to one-up the dumbbell, and that's what we're gonna look at today. It's from Kabuki Strength. It's called the Kyubell, and it looks a little bit futuristic. I'm not really sure if it can dethrone the dumbbell. It's definitely gonna try. It offers us a couple different options. It's all about load placement. There's a lot of nerd stuff here, and there's a lot to dive into with the Kyubells. I'm Ebenezer Samuel, the fitness director here at Men's Health. In each episode of MA Strong, I'll be joined by a fitness expert, and we will unbox, test, and rate the latest and greatest fitness gear to determine if it is indeed MA Strong.
So let's talk about a few of the basics. First and foremost, when you look at it, you have three handles. You have three handles here, which can be sort of kind of intimidating. You know, when you come with a regular dumbbell, you get what you look at, 20 pounds, you have 20 pounds there, and you have one handle. But here you have three different ones that can give you a different amount of load. It's the same weight, which this one we have here is 20 pounds, but every handle that you go onto can give you a different amount of load.
Exactly, and it's gonna go, they make these Kyubells starting as low as 10 pounds, go as high as 50 pounds. Pricing gets a little high as well. It's gonna cost you $139 for a single 20-pound Kyubell, $279 for a single 50-pound Kyubell. So that's a little bit steep. You wanna know what you're getting into on that. Like you said, it's got the three grips. It's all about load placement. There is no grip in the center, so you're always choosing a unique load when you work with the Kyubells. That's why you have to know what you're doing, and you have to know what you wanna get out of it to get the most out of these.
So the grips on each one of these, the width is about, you have 2.5 for your biggest one, 1.75 for your middle grip, and for the least one is 1.25. And it changes up like the contraction that you feel when you curl it, or depending on which exercise that you do, if you're pressing or if you're doing like a raise or anything like that as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's also changing up the stimulus and just how we're able to grip things. On the smallest one, on the 1.25 inch, I can get a really, really tight grip on it nice and easily. On the larger one, it's essentially, even on the middle one, it's essentially like, if you're familiar with fat grips, or if you wrap a towel around the dumbbell, that's the same effect. So we get to change how we approach our grip. We get to change how the bell also interacts with our inner wrist in terms of where we're placing things, and it creates a variety of options. I think the key is understanding what you're doing with the Kyubell to get the most out of it. And that's kind of the fun part, is figuring that out. If you're a gym nerd, then you're going to enjoy that. So things we love about the Kyubells. The first thing to me is just, this is the most natural way, and there are so many options for us to get drop set work in. So drop sets are a really, really good way that we can pile up a little bit of volume, push our muscles to the limit, and you can do these very easily with Kyubells because we get to play with this thing that I think is forgotten a lot in the gym called lever length. When I have this 20-pound Kyubell out in front of me for a curl, I have to work really, really hard because I've created this long forearm lever for myself. If I drop it down here, suddenly it's a shorter forearm lever that's a lot easier for my biceps to work. If I move it on top into this position, suddenly all the load is on the middle of my forearm. That's gonna be a nice, easy curl. I just use a biceps curl because that's a really, really easy example. But I think playing with lever length and being able to do that, we can do that very efficiently. I can rep out as many long lever curls as I want to, then transition in an instant after I've done a bunch of these curls. I can transition in an instant without ever having to switch the weight into a curl that's essentially loading my biceps less, and then in that same instant, I can flip it over. And I think just being able to do a drop set like that super efficiently at the end of any workout, I think is really great.
No, 100%. Definitely you don't have to have, like, let's say if you're starting at a 50-pound dumbbell with your bicep curls, you don't have a 50, a 40, a 30, and a 20 right in front of you, especially for space, and you don't have to put it down, pick it up, re-rack it, and things like that. Especially for a drop set, you really don't want a lot of rest time between your drop sets. So another thing for me as well is just the simple fact of how you can change it and how it can make it more stable for you. You know, it takes off pressure from the wrist. Let's say if somebody does have any wrist problems, you can turn it in a way that it's just friendlier for your wrist as well. Somebody who doesn't have those problems, you can just go on ahead and turn it, and it works for you.
And so if you can be smart and creative with your training, and if you have a little bit of a base where you can play with moving that around, you can have one pair of Kyubells and it can be enough to challenge you on skull crushers, whether you're doing a low rep set of 8 or a high rep set of 15. You can find different ways because we're playing with that load placement to create challenge and push yourself to the limit, even though it's just one pair.
Also, one of the things that I like, I think it also can be used in replacement of kettlebell as well. You know, if you're looking for that stability, you know, for like a bottoms up press, you know, you want to have that all the load at the top. Let's say we can go to this one right here where the majority of the load is at the top. So you have to have that stability. And as you press up, you know, so I think that's a good thing and a replacement for a kettlebell, as well as swings. It's good for swings. Now, being that the fact that it only goes up to 50 pounds, it's good for if you really want that challenging load, you know, you would do it with one arm as per se 2 arms.
Yeah, I want to get back to when you were talking about the bottoms up presses. It is definitely great for a bottoms up shoulder press. One of the interesting things with the Kyubell as well, it's very, very hard. It's not comfortable and it's tricky to get into a starting position if you want to do, say, a bottoms up dumbbell press or a bottoms up incline press. But you can get these in position a lot more easily and they're going to maintain a little bit better because they are a little bit more stable, but you still get that bottoms up effect. So it does start to replace a kettlebell. I think Kabuki wants it to replace a kettlebell. It's not all the way there yet, but we're going to get to that up next.
So for some of the things that I don't like about it, for me, is how intimidating it looks when you first come in contact with it, you know? It's 3 different handles. I don't know which one to use, which one will be optimal for me where I'm at. I'm not sure. It's not a what you see is what you get type of piece of equipment. You know, you need to have some sort of kind of knowledge on like what load is as opposed to what weight is and the difference. You really need to have some sort of kind of knowledge on about like contractions and things like that and where it would optimally be best for whichever muscle group that you're working. So just for me, it's just about how intimidating it looks and how much knowledge you will need to have. So it's not for a general population, you know, if the average person, I don't believe you be able to pick this up and know exactly what they're doing with it.
Yeah, exactly. You need a roadmap to find your way around the Kyubell. It's really hard to understand initially, and it also doesn't work for every single exercise that you've done in the book, especially kettlebell exercises. Again, Kabuki would love for this to be a kettlebell replacement. It works great for swings, works great for the bottoms up stuff. It does not work as effectively for clean concepts or for snatch concepts. It's going to be a little bit less comfortable than your standard kettlebell or than a dumbbell, and that's just because it's not really meant to spiral. There's a lot going on with these handles. You get back to that roadmap aspect of things. I'm not really sure where I want to hold it, and I can't really get that good corkscrew feeling when I'm doing a clean. I feel like I have to flip it. The only way I can get it into a snatch position, I have to flip it, and that's fine if I'm doing 2 to 3 reps. If I'm doing, say, 40 seconds on, 20 off, I'm not going to love that in the long term. And this is huge if you're somebody who is really out there to train arms. You're not going to get quite the same effect that you get from curling a dumbbell. You're going to get our biceps are responsible for 2 main functions. They're going to flex our elbow, and they're also going to create this effect called supination, essentially turning your pinky to the ceiling. And we can get a lot of great challenge flexing our elbow from the Kyubell. But because of the load placement, because it's in the middle of the Kyubell as opposed to on the outsides, we're not going to get as much challenge supinating and creating that good rotation with the Kyubell. So we miss a little bit of what we might get out of a biceps exercise. And yes, that's very, very specialized, but if you're there to train arms, if you're picking these up for accessory movements in particular, you will gain a lot of things, but you're going to lose that great ability to curl, and you might still want a pair of dumbbells.
I think this is best for somebody who is, you don't have to be all the way advanced, but you have to have at least some knowledge of each lever. What I think Kabuki is trying to do is make something simple, but it's also complex at the same time because you have to learn what each lever does for you when you're holding it and how you're holding it. So I think this is for someone who knows that knowledge, who has that knowledge, someone who is also trying to save space, and that works best for them. And because of where it comes in at price-wise, I believe that this is for somebody who can get their full amount out of it, their full money's worth.
Yeah, essentially it's for the New York person who who doesn't have a lot of space, who is super serious about their training and really wants to learn more. You have to want to understand levers, you have to want to push to understand levers, and you have to be willing to explore. And as we said earlier, take the feedback from the Kyubell, because it's going to give you a spot, it's going to give you a lot of feedback. If you don't want those things, if you are a beginner and you aren't really sure where to go about it, if you haven't really learned the basics, you have to have the fundamentals down in order to get a lot out of this. If you don't have those fundamentals down, if you don't really know your kettlebell swing well, if you don't know your biceps curl well, if you don't know your Turkish get up or your bottoms up press well, you're not going to understand how those movements feel, and you're not going to be able to take advantage of the added feedback the Kyubell is giving you and the added resistance adjustment you can create, so you're not going to have as much fun using the Kyubells. And I just like innovation. Again, the dumbbell is super basic, and we've seen plenty of dumbbells. It's nice when a company comes along and tries to push the envelope a little bit and offer a little bit of different load. And yes, there is challenge level to this, and there's a lot to learn, but if you take that challenge and you're willing to learn, you're gonna get a ton out of the Kyubells, you're gonna see a lot of development, and you're gonna get a really, really good pump, because again, you get back to that fundamental thing of drop sets. Whenever you can introduce drop sets to your training, and you can do it in a smart way, and you can do it quickly, which is what these are all about, you're gonna wind up having a great workout. So that is the Kyubell. Let us know what you think of this. Let us know, would you buy this? Would you not? Are you interested in it? Comment below and let us know what you think.